Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bed, Back, and Beyond, a video podcast series dedicated to sharing positive recovery from serious neck and back injury. The goal is to bring hope to you that may be currently suffering in the most painful time in your life. I'm Christine, and with me today is my husband, Dan.
Hi.
Dan will be interviewing me because I am a herniated disc survivor back in 2019. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Dan, thanks so much for agreeing to do this with me.
Sure, happy to help you. All right, so Christine, why don't you start by telling us how you hurt your back in the first place?
Okay, so it started in April of 2019. I was walking our two dogs, two beagles, Porthos and Tiberius, and we're just walking around the neighborhood, and I was bending over to pick up after one of them like a very responsible pet owner that I am. And as I was bending over, they must have seen a rabbit or a squirrel because they took off running behind me. They didn't pull me down, but I did have to slam my leg back to catch me. And that sent like an immediate pain in my right butt cheek. And I had to hobble home. And that pain lived in my butt cheek for a couple weeks. And then it moved into my back to the point where I felt like I threw my back out, which is like a normal experience for me every other year. I would throw my back out, and then the pain shifted after several, when you throw your back out, usually you are recovered within 3 weeks, but my pain just started shifting, and I noticed it was hanging around a lot longer, and then it just shifted to my left butt cheek to the point where it was a painful pinching. Anytime I would stand up, I would have to stand up from driving or getting out of bed, and I would have to like catch myself and catch my breath and just wait for that pain to dissipate until June, the end of June.
Tell us what happened at the end of June then.
End of June is when I herniated my disc. We were getting up to get ready for my cousin's wedding, and you had noticed the trouble that I was having getting out of bed in the morning, so you had already made your way to my side of the bed to help me up. But I just remember
You had been having some slowly over the week leading up to that, you were having trouble getting out of bed.
Yes.
So we already knew that this was sort of an issue.
Yes. And standing up from the car rides. It was so right. Like a pinching, just the pinching in my tush. So so you had gotten up before me and you were walking over to my side of the bed just to help me up. And I rolled over and got hit with the worst pain in my life. I think you said I let out a yell.
Yeah, this excruciating scream that was unlike anything I had ever heard anyone, noise that I hadn't heard anyone make before.
Or
it's
since.
Very troubling to have come out of your life.
And then I can just remember like writhing and trying to find a position just to make that pain go away. And of course it wouldn't. And then you tried to get me out of bed, which we did eventually. And, I had to use the bathroom. So you're trying, I think you put me down on the floor because you were picking me up and I'm just saying, no.
Yeah, it was just a slow process of getting you to the point where we could get you to sit up and then eventually get you to stand up very temporarily before lowering you down to the floor where you were at least a little more comfortable on a firm surface. But it took the whole morning was just very long. And I think the other thing that was kind of going on was you were very determined to get to this wedding.
Jenna.
And it was just a slow process of not only trying to get you comfortable, get to that point where, okay, I think we need to call the ambulance. We need to get you to the hospital.
I think I was a little hesitant at first. Like, we don't need the ambulance.
Yeah. There was some, we can get through this and maybe some denial that it was quite as bad as it was because we didn't know what was going on.
Right.
Although as soon as you let out that cry, it was clear something significant had happened. And this was more than what we were dealing with before for the last few months.
Yeah. So it took 2 hours to get me from the bedroom to the living room. And that was all one floor. And then you put me onto the couch and we waited for the ambulance to come and go to the ER just to find out that I most likely had a herniated disc, because they didn't do an MRI then. But.
Yeah, and I think we were expecting some sort of imaging or something like that. So it was a little frustrating that we left the ER without any clear answers, but they did give you pain medicine that helped.
And prednisone.
Prednisone.
Like a strong 3-day course of prednisone.
Yeah. And that kind of got you to a point where the pain was manageable.
Yes.
Enough for you to then get to your first doctor appointment with a back pain specialist.
Right. So that was a week later.
Right. So, Christine, then you met with the back pain specialist, and there were a few things that you did, but you ultimately elected for surgery and fairly quickly settled on the decision to have surgery. So why don't you walk us through the process of quickly meeting with that back pain specialist, what you did leading up to surgery, and then why you made that decision?
Sure. So the follow-up with the back pain after the ER was the following week. He made me do all these, like, stand up on your tippy toes and bending my leg back and all this stuff to say, yes, you have a herniated disc, and he ordered the MRI. He was someone against surgery, so he wanted me to see his partner, who was the cortisone injection doctor. So we had to schedule a follow-up with the cortisone, or consult, I'm sorry, with the cortisone, which was the following week. And at that consult, we went thinking that I would actually get the cortisone that day. So we were a little frustrated to know, like, oh, it was just the consult. Like, it's been, at that point, it was 3 weeks. And so he was able to get us in the following week after the consult. So my cortisone injection was Monday, July 22nd. So the herniation was June 29th. First cortisone injection was July 22nd. And they tell you,
this entire time you are out of work, spending most of the day, I think even sleeping on the couch in the living room, because that was the most comfortable place for you.
And crying a lot.
Sure. So this was a long 3-week wait to get to the first cortisone injection.
Right.
So then tell us about your experience with that.
The cortisone injection doctor, was very nice, had a great bedside manner. He did make me feel very hopeful. And so we were able to get the cortisone injection. You can opt to be put to sleep for the injection, but I just took Valium because we didn't have health insurance. So less money, the better. So I just took some Valium for the injection, and it actually was very comfortable experience, but they tell you it takes 2 weeks to get the full effect. So I did see some improvement. I think I would say it brought my pain down to a 7 versus it was at a 10, and was doing okay. And then I tripped. I was going up the steps quickly because I was in the rush, and my foot caught at the top step, and I swung my bad leg out and caught myself. So I didn't fall, but that jarring, it just immediately put me back to a level 10. And I was on the floor. I had to call Dan because you were at work. So I had to have you come home, get me off the floor. And at the same time, at the same time after the cortisone injection, we started to think that maybe we should consult with a surgeon. So in between my first shot and my follow-up visit with the shot, we actually went and just had a consult with a neurosurgeon about surgery.
Yeah, there were a couple of things going on at the same time where you had a little bit of an adverse reaction.
Yes, my leg swelled, and my ankle and my foot all swelled.
And it gave you, if I remember right, it gave you a little bit of a feeling of you weren't feeling quite yourself.
Jittery, and my vision was a little blurry at times.
Yeah, so that mixed with it did bring you back to some level of functionality. Still nowhere near ready to go back to work.
No, but I could walk around.
Yeah.
I was driving.
Yeah, some degree of functionality, but then that was all immediately wiped out with that trip.
Yes.
And so the feeling of unease and some of the other symptoms combined with the sort of rolling back to square one was sort of enough to at least have you seriously exploring surgery.
Right.
Was there anything else that led to you making that clear-cut decision of, okay, I want to do surgery?
Well, the main thing was that it just didn't make sense in my mind that there was something out of place in my body and causing me pain. So I just wanted to get in there and get it out of there to stop causing me pain. I wanted to go back to work. I had lots of guilt feelings for some reason for missing. I was the one not getting paid, but I was feeling guilty because my boss had to look for temps and things. So I had all this guilt on me, not from you, honey. But we weren't in one income family. So I wasn't working. I was per diem. So I didn't have any kind of sick day or disability. And so there was just one day when I was at home alone, kind of upset, sitting there struggling, which decision do I make? And I get a phone call from your mom, actually. Hi, Chris. How are you? And I was like, oh, I'm good. I think I want to do surgery, but I'm not sure if it's the right decision. And your dad was in the car and I had no idea. And he just went ding, 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 ding. That's what you should be doing. It's like, okay, well, that's the answer I was looking for. So that kind of helped solidify that, yeah, I need surgery.
And in addition to the cortisone shot, you had at least begun a little bit of
physical therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yep. So I can't actually remember where it fell in between the cortisone first or, all that stuff. But I did try some physical therapy before surgery, and it really wasn't making a difference. And we find out why later. It wasn't helping at all. And at one point during physical therapy, I was just doing these side movements because I did the whole walking with the tilt. So there's a movement to kind of help correct that. And I start to pass out. And it turns out that I had a tear in my dura that the herniated disc material was keeping closed. But I think when I would do the side movement, it would kind of open up that tear. And that's what made me almost pass out at physical therapy. So I just had to follow up with the cortisone injection doctor. I went back in. He said, what's your pain level like? And I told him, I don't feel much better since the trip. And he said, well, this is where we consider either doing a second shot or doing the surgery. And I had heard before that the cortisone only has limited returns. And I didn't want to use up all of my cortisone shots for a lifetime, with just being 41. And so then we told him, yeah, we're going to do surgery. So.
Yeah. And again, because it was so quickly from a certain level back to square one, there just wasn't a lot of desire to then wait and see for another couple of months.
Right.
To get the second shot and potentially the
third shot, because there's around the 3 shots.
To see if it might have had more lasting effects. And I think you were just at that point just ready to try something that was going to address the actual situation.
Right.
That's right.
Yes. So we had, there was a young couple at our church where the husband had a herniated disc surgery maybe a year or two before mine. So he really loved the practice that he had the surgery with. So that's where we went. And they initially scheduled the surgery for September 4th. But then I got a phone call one day that said, hey, we have an opening, a cancellation for August 29th. So, yeah, so the herniated disc was June 29th, and my surgery was August 29th. That is quick, I feel like, in the world
it didn't feel like it.
No, it didn't. And I had my boss saying, what are they doing down there? Why aren't they taking care of you? But now when I look back, I can say, like, oh, it was only a couple months wait. Yeah.
But when you're lying on the couch,
right. Yeah.
Basically close to 24 hours a day and in near constant discomfort, at least, and sometimes severe pain.
Mm-hmm.
It was a hard series of months on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was also stretching back to
April. Right.
So.
And I remember clear as day those feelings of being useless, feeling oddly guilty, like I was punishing myself for some stupid because I couldn't work, feeling like I would be stuck like that forever. that my life was just now on pause and I would never get back. So I really it's depressing.
I remember that specifically, you voicing those sorts of thoughts and frustrations. Is this ever going to end?
Yeah.
When is this going to end?
Yeah.
It just seemed, even though it was just 8 weeks between the herniation and the surgery, it was a long 8 weeks. Do you want to talk about the surgery? Was intended to be outpatient.
Yes.
And very straightforward.
Yes.
And it turned out not to be. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So I was supposed to, go in the morning and come home that night. But it turns out that my herniated disc material was glued to the dura that surrounds the nerve tissues with scar tissue. So when the doctor went in to remove it, he had to leave a chunk of the tissue stuck to my nerves. And there was that tear that I mentioned. So he had to kind of patch it. I think he did a blood patch. And so therefore I had to lay on my back for 3 nights, was it? I was in the hospital Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah. So for 3 nights I had to lay flat on the in the hospital while they took care of me. So I feel like that kind of saved me a little bit of dealing with some post-surgical pain because I was on IV pain meds and anti-inflammatories.
But because some of that disc material is still there, it also led to you had a very prolonged recovery period where you were. Well, tell us about what your thoughts were, your fears were post-surgery.
Okay, so I'm technically still pinched. So I had the surgery. So I guess it wouldn't be a 100% effective surgery because I'm still pinched. They couldn't get that material off, so it's still on my nerve. But he did leave a hole in the bone to give my nerve some room to move. So for day to day, I'm actually fine. Like I barely feel it. It's just when I have a hard day or my back tighten up that I can start getting some leg pain again. But I didn't know that I was still pinched. It wasn't until like several weeks later that the doctor said, "Oh yeah, well you're still pinched." So I had surprise. So I wake up and my leg is still numb. I can't remember if I had the leg pain, but I had the leg pain still, and I just remember the physician assistant standing over my bed and just like looked at me with this look of fear and said, "Well, that's because you're still pinched." She said you're still pinched, but the doctor was like, "Nah, you're fine."
But even after, in the weeks following your surgery, the pain at times was so severe.
Yes. So that is a normal part of the healing process after a microdiscectomy. So that's not limited to just my experience. So what they don't prep you for, what the doctors don't prep you for, is that you're going to have post-surgical inflammation. And about 2.5 weeks after surgery, my pain came back to like almost pre-surgery level. And I was popping Tylenol every 6 hours, like even waking myself up in the middle of the night, like on a timer. And then I finally called the nurse and she was like, "What are you doing? You're going to kill your liver." So she gave me a Medrol dose pack, a steroid, and that knocked the pain right out. So it was just post-surgery inflammation, but nobody had warned me about that. So it freaked me out. Yeah.
That you were concerned. What was your fear?
That I had reherniated. And that's all you think about after surgery is, did I reherniate? Did I reherniate? Because the healing is not linear. There's lots of step forwards but two steps forward, 1 step back. And I really feel like they should do a better job of preparing you for that. I don't know. I can think that I would have done better, but I feel like if I had known that it's not just wake up from surgery, wait 2 weeks and go back to work. It's a process. It's a slow process of ups and downs. And it was physically draining, but also emotionally draining.
So knowing what you know now with your surgery and post-surgery experience, would you, if you had to do it all over again, would you opt for surgery again?
100%. 100%. It wasn't easy. But I feel so much better, and I can live my life normally. And I can't imagine delaying that pain longer than I had to. So that was 4 years ago. I can't believe it was 4 years ago. Like I said, I feel like I was stuck in that moment, but now I can look back and say, oh my goodness, that was 4 years ago, and I feel so much better.
Yeah, so not everybody has this. There's no two same experiences with the surgery. We were expecting an outpatient surgery for you to have immediate pain relief.
Right.
And that was not that has some people's case is
Yes.
that way,
that
they have the surgery and instantly they feel better.
Right.
But that was not your experience.
No.
And we did not know that was such a significant possibility.
Right.
But
in the end,
hindsight,
though,
you would
yeah.
do it again.
Yes, I would.
All right. Is there anything that you know now that you wish you knew heading into surgery? For that pre-surgery period, what would you do to prepare yourself or prepare your home? Post-surgery, what should people expect post-surgery to be like? That sort of thing.
Pre-surgery, I would just make sure I have a meal plan in place. You want healthy food that's going to keep your bowels moving. Meal prep ahead of time. Keep your food at a location in the fridge or freezer where you don't have to bend to pick it up. Keep your floors clear because you're going to have to be walking a lot after surgery. That's part of the recovery process. And you want to have a support system in place. I would not have been able to do it without Dan. He was an amazing help to me. But I know there's lots of you who are single moms or just live on your own, single parents. Reach out and find someone to help. Even if you're not a church member, call a local church. They have meals. A lot of them have meals set aside and frozen, just waiting for somebody in the community to ask for help. They would also know of anybody who does home care for work. I think there's a website called care.com where you can go on and look for people who do home care, or just the Nextdoor app. Somehow get help to help you for your post-surgery experience. And post-surgery, my biggest piece of advice is get stuff to occupy your mind, because you do not want to be dwelling on yourself. You're going to feel every little random muscle spasm, random nerve twitch. And if you're not just occupying your mind, it can really send you down some emotional spiral, which I feel like it did for me. I heard on a podcast not too long ago, a doctor say that the people who do better emotionally with a herniated disc are the ones who look at it as a challenge that they can overcome. And I didn't know that ahead of time. I focused on the woe is me aspect of it. What else? Get a bidet. Get a bidet.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that was most helpful to us was someone had lent us a set of rails,
medical handles, on either
side of the toilet for you to sort of help you get yourself up and down.
Yeah, that was huge.
Little things like that you don't necessarily anticipate. Is there anything else that you can think of that was stuff that we bought? One example that just came to mind for me was we also bought you a walker post-surgery because that recovery period was so long. But the walker that I just went to the pharmacy and got the best walker I could find, but it was a little too low.
Yes.
And so that led to its own problems. So I think things like that. Is there anything else those types of things that you would say, make sure you have this on hand?
A grabber. Get 2 grabbers for when you drop the first set of grabbers.
Like the claw.
The claw. Kind of yeah. A lot of people recommend, I didn't have this, but we had the handlebars, but some people like the toilet seat risers for sitting and standing easier. Figure out how you're going to shower. You're not going to be, especially if you don't have help, you're not going to be climbing in and out of the tub. So you'll be probably doing some just sponge bathing for a little bit. What else did we buy? I bought a lot of nightgown dresses or pajama shirts so that I didn't have to bend over when using the bathroom. Everything revolves around the bathroom, I feel like. How do I poop? That's the biggest question on the forums.
The pressing matters
Yes,
that we discuss
yes.
here on Bed Back and Beyond.
Yes.
Toilet behavior.
I do plan to do a video on tips for post-surgery and the most asked questions in the forum for microdiscectomy.
Chris, is there anything else that you would tell someone who is either considering surgery or is in that post-surgery period and feels like their recovery is taking longer than they would like?
For considering surgery, I would say drown out all the noise. You are going to have so many people wanting to tell you their opinion or the horror story of their uncle's dog's nephew's owner. Like, everybody has a horror story that they want to tell. And that's part of the reason why I want to do this podcast, is to get positive stories of recovery out there for you who are considering surgery and things like that. People are trying to be helpful, but in the end, it just causes more stress. And for anyone who is currently recovering in surgery, just know that it is not a linear recovery. You are going to have random muscle spasms, nerve twitches. The pain might come and go. It's all part of the normal healing process. So don't freak out. You're doing okay, and you can get through this. And I want you to know that you can get through this. And in a year from now, I want you to come back and say, I can't believe that was a year ago.
Yeah, I remember that you had that, again, it was late August that you had that surgery. And it was the middle of October. And Christine was still really struggling with things. And I was starting to get a little down about, how long is this for her? Like, how long is she going to be dealing with this? And there was an older gentleman in our church, and he was talking to me about his daughter had a back surgery and he had a back surgery. And I just kind of commented off the cuff at how long it seemed to be taken. And he said, oh yeah, it's going to take some months more, but she'll get through it and you'll be okay. And just hearing that, like, oh, it is going to take months more, kind of just powered me through, like, okay, it's that expectation that because we expected almost immediate relief, 2 months felt like an eternity.
Right.
And knowing that it, in some cases, is 4 months or 6 months, that just sort of took a lot of the pressure off. Like, okay, we are doing okay. And like you said, you do get through it. Easy for me to say, but you did get through it.
I got through it with your help. 100%. And I would like to say that I'm now to the point in my life where I can look back and say, thank goodness for that herniated disc, because we had some benefits come because of that. So that's huge. Like, to look and see what are the blessings in disguise that are coming. And yeah, so now I can say, oh, I'm so glad that herniated disc happened because of this. Thank you for joining us for the first episode of Bed Back and Beyond. If you have a story of recovery that you would like to share from a neck or back injury, please reach out. I would love to interview you on here and post it on YouTube. And until then, good luck, and you can do this.